So I grew up in San Jose, and I was the youngest of six kids in a very conservative Catholic family. I had four older sisters and an older brother. And my older brother and my father, I remember vividly from childhood, would get into just raging battles. My brother was a bit of a bad seed and got into some trouble. And I remember most vividly in the rafters in the garage, there were several doors that had been taken off their frames after getting holes punched in them during their various arguments. So, needless to say, having observed that growing up, I always was very straight laced. And so, when I went away to college at WashU in St. Louis, 2,000 miles away from home, I kind of broke out of my shell and partied a little bit excessively. I only lasted 3 semesters there before dropping out. And when I was dropped out, I was disowned from the family. I moved to Santa Cruz, California, which happened to be the same town where my brother lived. And we kind of rekindled a relationship as he'd been out of my life more or less since my very early childhood. After a few months, I had gotten back into my parents' good graces, kind of still off the financial teats, so to speak, but back into getting invited to family functions. And I thought it would be cool in my naivete to try to secure an invite for my brother to Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving 1998, my parents do invite my brother. I drive him over. And my brother, one of his vices is using drugs, although it moved from kind of harder drugs in his younger years to just primarily marijuana in his older years. He couldn't really even go the car ride from Santa Cruz to San Jose, which is like an hour, without toking up. So he brought a bong and a bunch of weed with him. So after dinner was concluded, my sister Mindy, who had a house down the street, my brother Joe, and my sister Jen and I all decided we were going to take a little sojourn over to my sister's house to imbibe in a little marijuana. As we were departing, my eldest sister Monica's, her husband Mike, decided that he was going to join us. So we go to my sister's house, and as we were there, we all smoke up, and my sisters like to smoke cigarettes, so we smoked weed in the house, and then everybody left to go outside to smoke cigarettes, or us to accompany them. I didn't smoke cigarettes outside. And as we were there, I noticed Mike wasn't there, and then my brother went back in the house, and soon after there was a large shouting match that occurred. So we go in to find out that basically Joe had accused my brother-in-law Mike of stealing some of his weed. And my initial reaction was, okay, Joe is off his rocker and he's making it up. But sure enough, I look at the marijuana he brought, and he brought this giant cola nug. And you could clearly see it was, ripped off the top. And I know how my brother is very OCD, and he always would take, little buds off the bottom, working his way to the top. So it was clear to me at this point that indeed my brother-in-law Mike had stolen some weed from Jomo. And so at this point in time, Joe says something to the effect of, hey, if you just admit it, then I'll drop it. And so Mike admits it. And, of course, Jomo does not drop it. Jomo, being my brother, that's his nickname, Joe Moless. Anyways, so Joe's freaking out, and we all need to go back to my parents' house for dessert. So it is decided, it's only a couple blocks away, so it was decided that the larger group would walk back. I would take my sister's car and drive Jomo around the block a few times. He would take a few more bong hits and hopefully calm down. So we do that, and I'm driving Jomo around. He takes his bong hits. He's calming down. We drive back to my parents' house. And as I pull up, I see everybody's leaving. All the cars are getting packed up. All my nieces and nephews and sisters and brothers, or sisters, are leaving. My brother's in the car with me. And my mom's standing outside looking very distraught. I come to learn later that my brother-in-law, Mike, had decided to call my sister Monica, and this is back in 98, so it was on the actual landline phone to my parents' house, and do some damage control. So Mike called Monica, explained what had happened, and as people would do back in those days, my dad eavesdropped on the phone by picking up the line from upstairs and heard everything, and we were all outed. So as Jomo was taking bong hits and I was driving him around, my dad, who is about 100 pounds overweight, hopped on his bicycle, rode to Mindy's house, intercepted the group of Mindy, Jen, my other sister, Mike, and Mike, and proceeded to chastise them all for smoking weed and ruining Thanksgiving. And that was the story of the last Moless family Thanksgiving.